Chapter 3. Autumn Sunsets, November. November has arrived Konoha with persistent rains and fogs. Autumn was getting sadder and more silent. Together with the bright colors disappeared from the leaves, it became really cold, even on a thin crust of ice appeared in the puddles. Perhaps the weather as the window could only be compared with the atmosphere that reigned in office of the fifth Hokage. Deathly silence, from which according to goosebumps crawled on my back, as if from piercing wind. An icy foreboding of a storm. And then the storm broke out with the excited cries of Sakura's parents. What does all of this mean? Hokage-sama? Kakashi-san? Ino with feverishly shining eyes, she could hardly restrain herself from scream with them in unison, because she suspected more than anyone. Her on forehead was written. I knew that something was wrong so. I knew. Kakashi visibly darkened, and his newly made wife became increasingly nervous, furiously tugging at her parents' hands inside of the doors. Tsunade cursed and clenched her teeth irritation. JG asked in bewilderment Ino, why is everyone so worried? Sakura doesn't maybe Kakashi-sensei's wife, because they are not celebrated and no guests fed. One Highlander was satisfied in the booth that reigned around. You know, doctors on similar missions are ordered in our hospital. Tsunade muttered rather loudly through her teeth, and then turned her gaze to your student. Here Sakura is seeing off her parents, who are worried about the robbery, and will definitely meet you. I have a serious conversation with future successor to the position. Everyone outraged had to urgently leave the Hokage residence. Sakura managed to catch Kakashi's eye before leaving. He nodded, promising to find her as soon as he is free. But the door slammed and the girl found herself under two attentive gazes demanding an explanation. Even 5, if you consider Ino, JG and Highlander. Here we go, Sakura said in a trembling voice, dragging her parents away the corridor so as not to sort things out on and sight everyone. Wait for me at guests, warned the runaway friend Ino, and then turned to the Highlander. I'll take you to hospital. Fill out a request their medical assistance. There is no debriefing to Haruno's house endured. I had to go to nearest available room, small room in which the map hung and there were racks with scrolls. Sakura, tell me, is this true? Kizashi asked sternly when the door was behind closed with them. The girl looked down under his gaze, but then she admitted, is it true? Could you hide something like that? Mabuki clasped her hands furiously, piercing her daughter with an angry gaze. We know your relatives? Not expected this from you. Kizashi gloomily supported his wife. The girl drawled hesitantly. I not wanted to bother you. What the stupid thoughts in your head? She continued to be indignant mother. And why Kakashi? With what the hell? What do you have in common besides the fact that he your ex-sensei? Well, took me to side glance of the kunoichi. He seduced you? Suddenly looked seriously at her girl father. No! What Sakura exclaimed with flushed cheeks. Not at all so. How? Mabuki stepped forward, not be able to cope with your indignation. What the stupid decision? Which one are you? You are ashamed and which you regret? Not at all, I'm ashamed and not I'm sorry. The girl was indignant, starting to get excited herself. Why or then you I wanted to hide everything from us? Asked her sarcastically mother. Only because you were ashamed. How you could agree to such an alliance? The father interrupted. Were you forced? Were you blackmailed by something? You guilty of something? Just, near the girl began to babble, crying. It's me and everyone is to blame, Kakashi intervened, entering room. 3 questioning glances stared at him. There was a tense silence. Mabuki everything or decided to speak first, because it was about her daughters. What does this mean, Kakashi-san? Asked sharply she. I to blame for what happened and I'll take full responsibility. The man bowed his head slightly. From the words of the man Mabuki calmed down, but although with the volume of the screams decreased, so why did my daughter end up being your wife? Kakashi sighed heavily. During the last general mission we were forced to join marriage, setting the condition, either the wedding or the problems that most likely led would to war. Sakura's parents looked at each other with displeasure. War this is, of course, very bad, but accept daughter's marriage against her will even worse. Kakashi continued, we with Sakura intended to dissolve the marriage as soon as we returned to village. For us it was only an agreement, a verbal concession to demands. But the mountaineers managed to hedge their bets. The man raised his hand and showed the stamp on wrist. Now they will be in course if we let's get divorced. Agreement? Mabuki exhaled, not sure how to react to this. She glanced sideways at silent daughter, but that stared at her feet, leaving the sensei to deal with explanations. And it turns out that this marriage cannot be dissolved? Kizashi clarified gloomily. And you with are we really married to our Sakura? It's possible, but only in September next year. To print, you only need a long presence nearby. Kakashi looked at the girl's father and quickly added, nothing more. Yu Sakura has a separate room. Mabuki sighed, narrowing her eyes slightly, but not began to express her thoughts on this matter. Perhaps we got a little excited, decided. She glanced sideways at your daughter. The husband nodded, but don't frown stopped. Sakura looked at him gratefully. Kakashi. Thanks to him, the conversation she was so afraid of turned out to be not at all so terrible. Well, that's exactly what it is, you and not someone else, the girl's mother continued thoughtfully. Perhaps for marriage, real or fake, you quite a reliable candidate. Future 6 frowned in confusion. I understand that you can remain calm, he said after a short silence, but I'll keep an eye on Sakura all this year, and I'll try to boil it down to minimize all the consequences that can happen to her. Promise our contractual union. Sakura even blushed her last words. Sensei. Kizashi and the Mabuki looked at each other. They are not. We're happy with the situation, but don't actively intervene yet. We're going. Okay, we trust you, the girl's father finally said. Sakura, come to us and guests. Let's talk, Mabuki said before leaving. They came out rooms, and Sakura with Kakashi was left alone. The girl smiled with undisguised relief. The man sighed and patted her by head. That's we talked. Because of the cold air we had to wear warm scarves, but some restless, and the approaching winter was not noisy scary. The son of the 4th looked at Konoha sitting on windswept rock with faces of the Hokage, and dangling his legs in abyss. Not nearby, the former ANBU root froze, smiling at the view and assenting to a friend's enthusiastic stories about super technicians. You know, I hear and I read the book, he said thoughtfully. Sigh. When Uzumaki was slightly exhausted, your seduction technique a sign of dissatisfaction. Wow? Near fell into Naruto's abyss. I her also in created as a child. To mock adults. Not because of this dissatisfaction. The pale artist feigned surprise. Where are you from anyway? Did you get this idea? Well, the Jinchuriki thought, rubbing the back of his head, they are always on. Naked people reacted like that, so it happened, of course, explained he, himself dumbfounded by his fantasy. True, I had to work hard to accurately portray. In who are you turning into? That incomplete technique worked. I even had to peek in women's baths, admitted with a sigh he, expecting another joke from friend's side. And how? Interested that. They invariably found, beat and kicked out. Naruto chuckled. Yes, there's more here. With some clan equipment came in handy, the artist thought. Clan? Uzumaki was surprised. Something like Sharingan, the former ANBU explained. You will hypnotize those around you, no one you and not will notice. And Sasuke has only advantages here, the son of the 4th muttered displeasedly. Maybe he is. I also peeked, but not him caught. Or something like the Yamanaka clan techniques, continued Sai, carried away by his ideas, moved to any girl's body and came in. No one and no attention will pay, Naruto thought, and then stated. But the coolest thing is to be a Hyuga. They actually see through objects. Them not even necessarily in go to the bathhouse. Yes, them not even a bathhouse needed. You can go directly to look through the clothes on the street, Databeo. Do you think it's that simple? Not believed Sai. Surely the Byakugan only sees chakra flows, but not the body itself. Let's ask. Naruto jumped up decisively. Where is Hinata now? Sakura had been hesitating for about a minute, but she couldn't deciding to knock on a familiar door. To her creepy nod, I wanted to talk to mother alone. Without Kakashi. Girl, everything or I gathered my courage, sighed and knocked. Mabuki immediately appeared on the threshold. Come in, Sakura, she smiled at her daughter. The girl entered native home, trying to look bold, but shrinking inside waiting for the inevitable. Here she spent most of her life. Everything around looked painfully familiar, which in a strange way gave peace and worried at the same time. They were clearly waiting for a guest in the kitchen, hot, delicious steaming in the cups tea, and there were baked goods in a bowl. Sakura looked suspiciously at Mother, that was on surprise and in high spirits. Sit down and try the cookies, the woman said too quickly. Sakura raised an expressive eyebrow. Tio, what are all these preparations for? Hardly whether tea with sweets can soften them future conversation. Mom, I see perfectly well that you're nervous, said the girl, taking a careful sip from cups. Well, Mabuki smiled again. Why, I'm just in a good mood. Okay, was Sakura muttered in annoyance. After all, for this good mood was hiding something completely bad. Mabuki, with an inspector's eye, made sure that her daughter took a bite of the offered sweetness, and asked without a smile, and now tell me everything in more detail. About what exactly? Cookies stuck in Sakura in throat. I had to drink it urgently. But excited girl not calculated, taking a sip of boiling water, and the appendage to I burned my tongue. About how you became a married lady, Mabuki no paid attention to daughter's torment. So Kakashi-sensei told everything. Indignant she, putting the cup away. That's it, he told. The woman narrowed her eyes dangerously. And now I want to listen to you. Sakura swallowed, peering into Mother's eyes, and then she sighed. I just happen to be the only girl in team, admitted she. If there was some other way, we would not begin to participate in this farce, honestly. So it happened. The kitchen became quiet. Mother and the daughter was silent, pondering the words spoken. You know, Sakura, Mabuki began loudly, causing the girl to press her head into shoulders, expecting an angry tirade. I think everything turned out well. Her daughter was ready to hear anything, but not just these words. Wow? The girl pulled herself together. That you are? Do you really think so? If on that it goes, then it's better I'll see you in the role of the Hokage's son-in-law than some renegade, the woman explained. There was deathly silence in the kitchen. Mom, please don't talk like that about Sasuke, Sakura said slowly, struggling with an attack of dull pain in heart. And our marriage with Kakashi isn't real. Mabuki chuckled as she looked at her daughter. That's about whatever you think, darling, pressed she. Even if your alliance with Kakashi is not real, you will still be considered his wife. Do you think someone else would want to take you on? Wives after divorce? Do you think anyone would want to be second? Mother! Sakura was indignant. Us and Kakashi doesn't do anything but for everyone it will be considered that it was, Mabuki reasonably objected. And the village already knows about wedding, and you know more you can look innocent in the eyes of others. I don't care about those around you. What Sakura exclaimed with red cheeks. Only Sasuke is important to me. Her mother was silent for a long time, peering at daughter's angry eyes, and not having expressed a self-evident answer to angry words. I'm sure that the proud Uchiha will be somewhat different from the rest? I would not your place hurried with divorce, she finally sighed. Sakura hissed angrily. You seriously? She shook her head angrily. So that rumors turn into reality? Seriously, confirmed Mabuki, and there was such an option would not bad at all. Listen, after all, I got attached to Kakashi, no deceive yourself. I think he best candidate for the role of your groom. Sakura clenched her fists angrily. It all seems to you, Mom! Almost screamed she. I am waiting for Sasuke. While you wait for this Uchiha of yours you will die an old maid, the woman pursed her lips displeasedly. Is it really for 2 months there is nothing between you it happened? Sakura instantly lost all her ardor and blushed. And no. She shook her head, confirming her mother's guess. Nothing really important. Here you see. There is already something between you. Mabuki smiled contentedly. Mother! Do you want to divorce him, please? The woman waved her hand tiredly. But it's unlikely whether Sasuke will be better than him. Stop doing that! Jumped on Sakura's legs. Sixth Hokage. The hero is not one war. Strong shinobi. And is yours husband, Mabuki minted every word. This is my life. The girl exploded. My. And I will decide everything on my own. With these words the kunoichi flew out of parents' house. Mabuki closed her eyes and sighed heavily. I want you to. I was happy, silly. And something tells me that now I'm wrong. But her daughter no longer I heard. Shikamaru was very busy. The inauguration of the sixth was approaching, and with inevitable problems for her, because Tsunade has already seen her long-awaited vacation, and Kakashi is not at all was eager to rule Konoha. And the advisor had a rather difficult time between them. It's just not him. The numbers converged analysts report, and the Hokage demanded a report in half an hour. To that or the brilliant strategist was tormented by a bad suspicion that the data from were taken as infidels from the very beginning. But I can't concentrate at work because an unexpected guest was sitting in his office. She sat impudently, as if she had specially come from Hatsuna to add problems precisely him, and not to congratulate the future sixth Hokage on acceptance of the position. Temari threw her leg over leg and looked closely at the guy in front of her. Under the girl's attentive gaze, he was noticeably nervous. He remembered under what circumstances the last time we broke up, which the Kazekage's sister really liked. Glanced sideways at guest Shikamaru, realizing that with still no report we'll figure it out, but with girl needs to do something. The Sand Ambassador should have booked a room in hotel, which I'm terrified of. I liked it, grinned she. The windows are small, the pillow is uncomfortable, the neighbors are loud. The guy coughed, staring at Temari with doubt, and shrugged, so choose any other one. Not I want to live in hotel, stated Ta. Then you need to find something more. Shikamaru frowned thoughtfully, already wondering where to send Gaara's restless sister and get the opportunity to deal with affairs. That's find it. The girl nodded favorably. The Master of Shadows was surprised. But you now have a different guide. I and Konoha and so no I'll get lost. Temari winced. I hear you another thing. Who called himself my husband? No one is behind you. Language is not pulled. That's take care of wife. Maybe it's time to ask for a divorce? The guy muttered but got up, with looking in with interest Sand Kunoichi eyes. Ta continued to smile cheerfully. Does she want to play? She will entertainment. And why was she so angry? Naruto muttered, rubbing his left cheek, which was still raw from Hinata's blow. Girls shrugged sigh, rubbing his right cheek in the same way. There it's completely impossible to understand. Even in books about they write about it. It's good that you don't knock out Tenketsu, became Uzumaki sighed. On the question is so not replied, the artist frowned with displeasure. Would first say then beat. He turned to a ruffled friend. To which of Hyuga shall we go now? Neither to whom, Naruto shuddered. Test on yourself 64 heaven strikes there was no desire. Let's go eat some ramen. A technology, us and no clan issues super strong, Tebeo. After talking with Sakura was a mother for a long time platoon and sulked at everyone for several days in a row. Kakashi doesn't knew how to approach her. He often caught on take it for yourself indignant or thoughtful glances, the meaning of which is not understood. But in the end the girl cooled down on her own, so not expressing no complaints to her husband. He is in principle, and not was so much to blame. Not forcibly down the aisle dragged, no rumors dissolved, resist divorce or her future relations with Sasuke was going. Sakura with shook the Hokage's cloak that she had just brought with a sigh and carefully rolled it up his. About us with hidden pride she ran her palm over tissue, closing the box. Knowing how much effort Kakashi put into Hidden Leaf, how tired he is came home by in the evenings, she's not at all doubted that the future sixth fully deserved the honor and respect of the entire village. And her respect too. In the square in front of the Hokage's residence there was no push-through. Every resident of Konoha considered it his duty to attend the most important event of this year. Now this is your village and your problems, Tsunade said barely audibly, handing over the Hokage's hat. Kakashi chuckled. In Fifth's eyes clearly saw hot springs, casinos and lots of sake. The sixth raised his head, put on his hat, and turned to an enthusiastically frozen crowd. Gray eyes habitually found among the many semi-familiar faces a fragile figure with pink hair. Sakura, as if sensing his gaze, smiled joyfully. Kakashi raised his hand welcome gesture, and the residents of Konoha burst into cheers of congratulations. Wow, Temari exclaimed a little surprised, I will live in this house. Quite possibly, Shikamaru muttered, with looking at the clan mansion with doubt. Remember, pay for housing. I'm not going to. Turned to him a girl. With the owners will figure it out for themselves. Are you satisfied? The guy asked mockingly. If it suits you, then you can't talk about payment worry. With looked suspiciously at he is the Kazakage's sister. With why is this such a waste? It's easier that way, get rid of you. Shikamaru chuckled sighed. Look for something else too problematic. Fine. Temari pursed her lips offendedly and entered house. Guest room to the left. The guy opened the door for her. The girl looked around thoughtfully, but not found to why would find fault. Are you staying? Shikamaru clarified mockingly. I'm staying. Temari felt a catch in his words, but not I could figure out which one it was. So I decided to just use everything maximum, on a week, not less. As you wish, the Konoha strategist grinned, not at all upset. Herein a black-haired woman entered the room, which Temari recognized as the mother of her guide. Shikamaru? Asked in surprise she, looking at the girl. This is the messenger of sand, the guy explained. She will live here for now us. Shikamaru! Temari hissed, taking a step back. Before she finally realized what was hiding in the malicious snort of a lazy genius. You or I liked it here. Toned to her the guy whispered. Yes, and where else should I settle my wife? Then turned cautiously to Yoshino. You complained about boredom, that's it, entertain each other here. The women looked at each other. I have to go. Hokage hastily fled to Street Master of Shadows. First thing on post. Hokage Kakashi is not at all. I liked it. Because it concerned his wife's departure. I can refuse, Sakura suggested, sensing his gloomy mood. They stood at windows in his office. Not the best option, the man shook his head, turning to girl. By terms of the contract they should send a medic. The kunoichi pursed her lips displeasedly. There is no, it is said that this must be exactly I. Not V. This is the case, patted her gently by Hokage's hair. News about our wedding is still becoming known in village. Sakura became gloomy. Behind over the past few days she began to notice how people this sincerely greeted her, fell silent in her presence, or whispered behind her back. It was unpleasant. And angry, very angry. Soon everyone will be in course, the man sighed. And with nothing can be done about this. But you don't care at all, be sure to be here and listen, hints and gossip. About, the girl exclaimed. So go solved it, sensei. Behind 2 weeks of your absence, there may well be a new reason for discussion. But me alone, you're not there, I'll let you go. I'll go with Ino, student 5 quickly decided. She also knows medical techniques. Fine, Kakashi nodded, and then he added seriously, I will send you letters once every 2 days, you answer right away. Not I think it's necessary, muttered the girl, blushing and looking away. Necessary, 6 snapped. I in this country can expect anything. And I'd rather play it safe than leave you there without support. Everything will be fine, Sakura smiled weakly and found and have the strength to look in her husband's eyes. It's just a medical mission. The last mission was also simple, Kakashi answered gloomily. It's all over. The man sighed and looked at again former student. Just promise that you will answer letters. I promise, nodded she. Indeed, it will be calmer this way. And him, and to her. On the way to the country of the mountaineers discovered serious shortcomings in their with Kakashi plan. Firstly, Ino knew gossip better than anyone and stories about a friend, not at all embarrassed by them voice on each stop, adding your own assumptions. Sakura was angry and snapped, but Yamanaka her no outbreaks, I was afraid neither drops. So did you kiss Kakashi-sensei? She asked innocently when she girlfriend not could speed up the pace and escape from conversation. Yes, growled at Sakura's answer. On wedding, it is a responsibility ritual. For real? Yamanaka narrowed her eyes slyly. Or in cheek? How are you, do you think? She rolled her eyes, girlfriend. I think that besides kissing, according to the ritual, you were supposed to do a lot of other things, the blonde grinned. We nothing is did. Haruno, who is already Hataki, gritted her teeth. And not even wanted? Was surprised Ino, causing Sakura to become more and more enraged and dream of destroying the notorious mountain village before grounds. Secondly, one girl, two the mountaineers did not care whether they perceived them no one as serious was going to. Worse yet, in absence of anyone male in squad, there in general with difficulty they led us through the border, making several obscene jokes with offers to spend the night in their bedrooms. Sakura, and so excited limit, slightly adjusted the nearby mountain landscape, which reduced the number of barbs from those greeting, but necessary still no respect added. Them, according to at least they were taken to the ruler. Which has not turned out to be place. Too fortunately, the girls were met by Isanadzi's wife, with walking with imperturbable dignity in small guest house next to the ruler's home. Akane calmly walked inside with guests, opened the closet, and slightly and after rummaging around, she pulled out a pair of thick robes along with hats that girls wore on streets. While you live in Isanagi-san's house, stated firmly, she looked at frozen friends, you will have to wear these clothes. But, indignant Ino. If you want to you are treated with respect, then you will have to follow some rules, the woman snapped. I think the incident happened gate was a good example? The kunoichi looked at each other gloomily, and remained silent. It looks like they stay in the country of the mountaineers promised many problems. Temari came in without knocking, but Shikamaru doesn't even turned around, completely absorbed in the papers scattered around table. And his room was full of all sorts of notes, drawings, maps and lists, since the Hokage's advisor liked to think about business before bed, no being distracted by problematic environment. The girl stood silently nearby for some time. Is the pillow comfortable? Not, the guy asked, raising his head. Nothing so, the kunoichi grinned, on a week quite suitable. What do you have you here? About us. Curiosity poked its head into paper. Secrets of Konoha? Plan to take over the world, Shikamaru snorted, pulling out of hand of a girl with a piece of paper written on it. Did you want something? I came for fee, Temari said mockingly, folding her hands on breasts. Payment? The Master of Shadows was confused. Behind this, the girl explained, pulling off the elastic band guy's hair. He shook his head, but the production still remained in the hands of the Kazekage's sister. What this? Asked dumbfounded she, looking at the small hourglass figurine that hung on rubber band. This is for you, Shikamaru chuckled smugly, throwing his hair back. Temari was silent for a long time. She doesn't even know herself could with to say exactly why I tried to tease this lazy genius. According to for what reason was I looking for reasons to meet him, talk, flirt. Yes, just flirting, I had to admit it. And he still managed to stay in winning, always left for the last word. Even now, she came to mock him, and he foresaw this and I even prepared. I came to say that I am leaving back to Sunwoo, Temari said in a changed voice. What? Shikamaru was surprised, with looking at him with concern. Girl. Why? You or I was going to stay here for a week. I changed my mind, the kunoichi snapped dryly, handing the guy an elastic band with a gift, but suddenly pulled it away back and hid the figurine in bag. For memory. Goodbye, the girl said, leaving rooms. Temari! Shikamaru exclaimed, but she chose him not here. Over the course of several days spent in Mountain Village, Sakura managed to miss her unbearably there with Kakashi's apartment. No, here to the wife of the sixth Hokage was treated with emphatic politeness, then whether the husband's authority worked, then whether really clothes, but the girl felt with all her skin how it was pressing on her surroundings. At least to her was much better than miserable Ino. Blonde, no protected by marriage, she was overwhelmed by admirers. While Sakura was treating her patient, Ino was asked to see different patients, some of them whom I just wanted to meet a girl alone, coming up with different reasons, from Something got in the eye. 2. Stomach hurts. No, lower, no, even lower. Oh, not hit it there. She even got a regular client, a tall, bald mountaineer with sun tattoos on cheeks who was causing more and more problems. His name was Takatera and he was one of Isanadzi's advisors. The more Ino became indignant and resisted his attention, the more he to her was interested. Some variety in the girls' lives were contributed by letters from Kakashi, on which Sakura answered immediately, trying not to bother him too much, but at the same time complain about Highlanders. After all, someone wanted to complain, but Ino in the role of the listener is not fit perfectly. I told anyone myself would owe their torment. Isanagi's granddaughter turned out to be a fragile, short girl with long black hair and curious brown eyes. Sakura immediately liked her. Although almost nothing spoke, I was terribly embarrassed and fell silent when the kunoichi tried to talk. The treatment went well. Such an illness required a course of medical procedures. But the result was noticeable already. Nosebleeds stopped, complexion improved, earthy gray turned to just pale, and the patient's constant fatigue turned into good health. Sakura was just getting ready for last procedure. She rubbed her palms, accumulating chakra. Miyako was watching her movements with undisguised interest. Suddenly the girl bit her lip and then blurted out, "You were married off without your consent, right?" Brown eyes stared at green with desperate interest. Sakura drawled, not knowing what to answer. If so on that it goes, then she herself imposed the idea with wedding to his sensei. And he was married to her without consent. Yes, and not they are married to actually. They are just waiting for a divorce. Are they waiting? You look quite happy with life. Miyako looked away embarrassedly. You smile sincerely. It means you happy? Oh, you. Sakura raised her eyebrows, completely confused. She really doesn't felt like a victim of circumstances. On the contrary, she was easy and fine. Because Kakashi doesn't care, she doesn't demand it, and on the contrary, he accepted yourself all the blows from her bad mood up conversation with parents. She felt good because it was Kakashi. Are you going to get married? Suddenly it came to Sakura, with return from labor your thoughts. Isanadzi's granddaughter blushed and stared at Gender and nodded resignedly. The kunoichi exhaled slowly, barely containing her rage. Own experiences about the wedding with Kakashi-sensei saw bright pictures before his eyes. And now this young girl, almost still a girl, is also afraid, doubtful, and nervous. And not can do nothing. It's unfair, it's wrong, it's not fair. If would not illness, I would have gotten married already, admitted Miyako. Sakura clenched her teeth. It's not for nothing that they say that everything is our lives don't happen just so. Illness of the ruler's granddaughter, a gift from heaven, the opportunity to defer the sentence. In another way, a wedding with I couldn't dare call him an unwanted person. And behind whom? With the girl clarified with difficulty. Behind family friend, Miyako's side. He very respected person and maybe in the future to take my grandfather's place. It's clear, the kunoichi pursed her lips. Her young patient was simply sold to as a guarantee of position. Something had to be done about this. You can't leave things like this. Sakura swallowed and looked around, with using chakra to make sure that no one is nearby was. She had time to think that what Kakashi-sensei said to her another crazy idea, but not interfere with what's happening. The girl is not good. Listen, Sakura quietly turned to sad Miyako. None has the right to deal with you in this way. You must choose the person herself which you will live with for the rest of your life. Isanadzi's granddaughter raised her eyes, sincere surprise. You say that as if I'm in slavery is sold. She smiled weakly after a short silence. My parents care about my destiny, they would not give me to a bad person, and he, even having learned about my illness, not refused our wedding, kept my word. More would he refused. Sakura growled. He would, Miyako shrugged, my illness is quite serious. I'll cure you. The student of the fifth promised. And I'll get you out of here. A tense silence hung in the room. The brown eyes of the ruler's granddaughter gazed steadily into Irionen's face, full of indignation. Thank you, Miyako said quietly, but not need to. What? Sakura was taken aback. You not understand? No, I understand, the girl shook her head. You think that fate can be deceived, but I know it's not so. Fate? Haruno asked in surprise. Well, yes, Miyako smiled. This is not my parents decide who am I, I'll live my life in fate. And even if I will resist, then with another person it will be me just as the universe planned. Only also parents will be upset. Not understand, Sakura muttered. I suggest you run away with me and Ino. I and Konoha will protect you. Arrest? Raised it to she has brown eyes girl. You I have a sister, her will Konoha also kidnap before the wedding? My girlfriends? Hundreds of other girls and girls who live in our country? Sakura fell silent, feeling helpless as never before in despair. All not as scary as you think, Miyako continued. After all, your fate was to favors you. Are you married? Happy. You got a very good one husband. Sakura frowned, no strength to find words to convince. Or reveal what they are. Marriage with Kakashi just a fiction. Maybe you think you did it yourself with the best choice? Miyako suddenly smiled slyly. Do you think you were? Would happier if would fate is not interfered? Sakura changed to face. If would fate is not she intervened would continue to wait for Sasuke. And probably once achieved would his the last Uchiha became would her husband. And what next? Everything she did for Kakashi was would done for Sasuke with no less joy. Here is the Uchiha himself, what would he did you do it for your wife? The girl shuddered realization that it is absolutely not knows his former teammate. What is he likes to study? How does he prefer to relax? What is he reading? About what will he talk about? Exactly so, Miyako sighed quietly, fate knows best what we need. Fate has made you sick. Sakura was found. So something is wrong so with this fiancé of yours. Maybe it was your fate that intervened? Looked slyly at her girl, becoming very similar to his cunning grandfather. My. The kunoichi frowned. Well yes, Miyako shrugged. So that you would talk to me. After all, my fate remained unchanged. After this conversation, Sakura returned to house thoughtful and completely broken, but there it is greeted me excitedly and even scared Ino. It seems I can't get here without my husband will be released, she exclaimed at Fran's questioning look. Naruto was stopped with a smile gate of Konoha. Ahead of him again lay a long and heavy mission in a moral sense. The guy turned around your village and looked at rock with persons of the Hokage, where work was already underway on creating the image of the sixth. I'll definitely be next. Naruto pointed his finger at stone sculptures. Hinata, standing slightly side, smiled at these words. After the incident with Sayam girl no longer was hiding that even stupid guys will think that she is looking for something there with the Byakugan. But and not climbed forward. Naruto was always surrounded by admiring fans. Hyuga sighed and looked away. Hinata! Suddenly called her Uzumaki. I'll bring you something from travel to present. Eh? The girl was surprised. You in return, tell us about your clan techniques. The blonde smiled widely. Hyuga blinked her eyes. Naruto waved his hand and rushed to your task. Hinata looked at him for a long time back. Maybe to get the guy's attention, you just had to hit him hard? As it turns out, Ino wasn't worried in vain. Excessive male attention to it was dictated by her unusual appearance. Long blonde hair very rare in mountain village. And they especially struck a chord with the ruler's advisor. To reassure her friend, Sakura suggested talking directly to Izanagi, because his granddaughter's treatment is over, and that means they can go home. Girls, with unspeakable relief we changed into your usual clothes, only when no one in Konoha doesn't found out what they looked like all this time, and decidedly went to meeting with ruler. But in house for negotiations, the situation became tense until limit, since while talking, Takatera came inside. The Highlander immediately reacted to loose clothing of his passion and sat down next to him, running a strand of blonde hair through his fingers. I in our village rarely has such beauties. Similar to you here, no, said the man, trying to make a compliment. And not will. Hissed Ino, yanking his property out tenacious fingers. If we let's get married on, I will carry it in my hands, Takatera promised. And I can walk on my own. The girl moved away. Neither. Oh, what kind of wedding is there to be? No question, maybe. Stood up for friend Sakura, slapping her fist in warning palms. Maybe. The mountaineer narrowed his eyes coldly, trampling all the kunoichi's hopes for peaceful resolution of the conflict. Suddenly the doors opened and went inside Sai. Any problems? He asked with polite smile and brush in hands. Sai! The girls exclaimed joyfully. Sakura doesn't. I doubted that it was Kakashi who sent the former A&BU route to them on revenue. No problem. The Highlander looked at him with a dangerous look. I just chose a bride. Ino on these words again hissed with displeasure. I so no think, shook his head Sai. And not I think that your ruler will be happy about the violation of the peace treaty. The guy turned to old man after all so? Guess from Konoha is right, said the ruler, suppressing the indignation of his advisor. But there is nothing here that violates the treaty. There is a girl who clearly wants the attention of others, and there is a man who wants him renders. It seemed to me that she is not like, the guy shrugged, sitting down on the floor is slightly ahead of the girls and putting the brush back in bag. Kunoichi for his back bit his lips, trying not to interfere with negotiations so as not to interfere. How did they both manage to find out in this village, if a man is interrupted by a woman, then respect from those around him not will achieve a means protecting them from there are no encroachments by the mountaineers will be able. You take such good care of her fate. Izanagi squinted mockingly, checking the guest for restraint, and then he added insinuatingly, as if she were your wife. And Konoha has had so many weddings this fall, Takatero added venomously, forced to sit away from the object of your desires. Know what you, answered calmly Sai, I not married. Marriage requires a little more than simple consent and sympathy, not grown up more, the ruler's advisor again caustically commented. Here am I by order of the Hokage, continued the artist, not paying attention to verbal studs. And what ordered Kakashi-san? Izanagi squinted mockingly. So I escorted back to Konoha his wife and her girlfriend. The guy shrugged, and then I thought and added, the integrity and safety. So them no one and not offended. The ruler shrugged, Takatera next to him grinned rather contentedly. On the contrary, they showed a great honor by offering to become the legal wife of my advisor. Sai not changed in face, but for some reason it seemed to Sakura that he got angry. By at least the danger from the smell of the former A&BU was quite serious. In our country, such an honor is called harassment. And men actively stuffing themselves into husbands consider them perverts. In some of their books they even suspect hidden sadism or that they are trying to correct their homosexuality. Sakura mentally, no knowing how to stop the flow of information from the artist's mouth. Izanagi their advisor were indescribably surprised, trying to digest what was said, but don't answer made it in time. Agree that giving high positions to people who hide their true nature is not very correct? The guy raised his eyebrows slightly. The ruler chuckled, glancing sideways at Takateru, suffocated by indignation. Anger appeared in spots on the man's face. More, continued Sai, no paying attention to girls' warning looks. Men, preoccupied with fierce superiority over women, clearly feel their inferiority. Either they have already had a bad experience, or they are very small. Sakura is not withstood and pulled my friend's hand, blurring the end of his diatribe. But Highlanders, and so we managed to think everything out perfectly. And there was an uneasy silence in the room. Ino swallowed convulsively. Sakura clenched her teeth waiting for the fight to start. That's the whole peace treaty is down the drain. What a pity that Kakashi is not around. Only Sai remained calm. Izanagi glared at him for some time, and then suddenly he burst out laughing. Do you hear me, Takateru? He turned around to the purple-faced mountaineer. They say that you are small. Yes, this alien is now, and I'll wipe off the powder. Promised the one climbing up legs. Sai not moved, smiling falsely. Ino behind his back squeaked in doom, and Sakura clenched her fists full of chakra. Sit down, the ruler suddenly ordered his advisor. Guest from Konoha is honest, and the truth deserves respect. Takateru trembled anger, but sank to floor. Since honesty is worthy of respect, then respect and Konoha traditions, Sai leaned forward slightly and summed it up. Tomorrow we were leaving back. Izanagi looked at him with a searching gaze, and then nodded. You'll leave, yes, a few more scrolls with you will receive stamps. We got them from Uzumaki clan from the country of whirlpools. Ruler! Takateru exclaimed, not believing that strangers will leave just like that, yes, also with secret scrolls. The old man just waved it off. The land of rising peaks has always kept its promises. Sakura with Ino looked at each other, not before in the end, still believing that everything worked out. Kakashi glanced gloomily at the ANBU report. That attack when he not yet was Hokage required serious investigation. And now it turns out that there are several criminals. They are well organized and are planning something in soon. This means they moved closer to road through the mountains? The man asked thoughtfully, shinobi in mask. Apparently, they are trying to hide, because there's almost no one in these places walks. The Hokage suddenly fell silent, thinking gloomily what exactly Sakura will have to return to this road. And she's up still not answered to his last letter. A bad feeling pricked my heart. In front of the detachment returning to Konoha, 4 unknown people suddenly appeared with weapons in hands. Attack! Was the first to react Sai, snatching a brush from scroll. The shinobi jumped as far as possible, breaking the distance between them and probable opponents. Only the attackers expected just such a reaction to his appearance from bushes and stuck in the ninja's ropes flew in the air. Sai drew something on the paper, with which ink tigers rushed out to meet the attack. One of they found themselves in entanglements, and disappeared from black splashes, but the other 2 rushed towards frozen opponents. Sakura, growling through clenched teeth, hit with all my might tied to load ropes, throwing it away. No really, it's not so easy to captivate it will work. Ino tried to fight off the rope with a pulled-out kunai, but that wrapped around her legs. The screaming girl tried to free herself, but here found herself completely tied up. Tried to take the medic alive, threw at go one of attackers, entering into fight with artists from NBU, killed the rest. An avalanche of water fell on the painted tigers, erasing the drawings. 2 other ninjas attacked Sakura trying to take her vice. The girl deftly dodged attacks and menacingly knocked down a tree. Unfortunately, in no opponents it was horrible, but they became more careful. Sai had a hard time. He tried not to fall under the blows of your enemy's sword, in that or time distracting the second one from related Ino. Ta tried her best to free herself, and this is for her slowly succeeded a little more, and she will also burst into the battle. Sai managed to trip up the nearest shinobi and throw a kunai at one of Sakura's opponents. He's not expected an attack from hand, screamed from the wound received and fell under a crushing blow from Student 5. The girl's second opponent scored chest air and began shooting air blasts, forcing Sakura to constantly dodge. The owner of the water element, seizing the moment when the pale guy was slightly distracted, rushed to fluttering helplessly in fetters for the girl kill her, and it will be easier to deal with the rest. Ino screamed, realizing that she will be able to dodge fatal blow. But here it is obscured Sai taking the blade on its short sword. Sparks flew, blood sprayed the enemy's longer sword scratched the former ANBU across stomach. Necessary same, the shinobi grinned. Why you are not there only brushes and daub. Ink corrected calmly Sai, with his free hand, opening a jar of paint and splashing it out face of the enemy. He screamed and jumped back, trying to rub his eyes. The artist does not gave him this opportunity rushed forward and dealt a fatal blow here or turning to remaining in alive to the enemy. I had to tinker with him, but Ino, who had freed herself, threw it at Shinobi Whirlwind Shuriken. He beat it off them, but got into teeth of another ink tiger. From constant explosions and dust flew into the air, obstructing the view. Sakura squinted, trying to sound to understand where the next attack will occur. She's no longer I saw my enemy, even his silhouette disappeared, merging with surrounding shadows. Sakura turned to girl Sai, but it was late. The last one the remaining opponents were nevertheless caught by the 5th student, attacking her with backs, and hit, throwing a kunai at defenseless neck. However, the blade is not even touched the girl's skin, drawing a smooth arc, together with dived down with his hand. The gloomy sixth Hokage appeared in front of the surprised shinobi, and his gray eyes shone with steel like a sentence. Lightning flashed and everything became quiet around. Sakura exhaled with difficulty, looking up at Kakashi. He turned to her, and the girl threw herself at him neck. The man holds her tightly hugged, pressing to yourself. I was worried, explained quietly he. I decided to meet you. Thank you? Sakura sobbed, smiling at something unknown. She was happy, so happy. That everything worked out, that everyone was alive, that Kakashi came to the help, that he was nearby and hugged her. How great to have a hug! She missed its warmth, hands by, and his voice, his confidence. Or maybe Mom and Miyako, and are you right about something? Sakura looked up cautiously. Kakashi sighed and released her from hugs. She quietly snorted nearby. Ino, who was treating the wound, Saya, but she does not comment on what she saw became. Or rather, she postponed expressing her opinion until later, when it's over, friend alone. We need to leave. The Hokage looked around the battlefield. Anbu will take care of the corpses. It's a pity that everyone is dead, raised his voice Sai. We not let's find out there is whether at their accomplices. Is not important, Kakashi shook his head. The main thing is you alive. In Konoha, Kakashi with Sakura first had to visit the Hokage residence, where the sixth was awaiting an extremely dissatisfied council of elders. Kakashi-san, with Kohara, shook her head with poorly concealed indignation, looking at the rumpled girl and the imperturbable ruler of List. It's certainly wonderful that you defended their wife, but it was extremely thoughtless to take such a risk. The sixth remained silent, but looked at the old woman with a hard look. You have a special ANBU squad, Hamura pursed his lips, had to order them, and not break in to fight yourself. Somehow before accepting the position of Hokage, coped, Kakashi grinned caustically, causing the elders to look at each other displeasedly. And anyway, everything is fine, Kohara suddenly decided, which earned her a suspicious look from men. Your young wife and all right, the faded old lady's eyes again examined the Sakura, and quite capable of giving birth to healthy heirs. What? The girl began to stutter. Since everything worked out so well, and you now married, then it's time to think about children, Hamura stated uncompromisingly, and these soon. Chapter 4. Winter nights, December. Behind windows slowly, and it was snowing smoothly. Very rare. Konoha has almost no one at all. Happened a lot and weightless, but endless. By on the streets one could often see people under umbrellas or delighted children catching white flakes with their tongues. Winter came unnoticed. The air became frosty and nights longer. And for some reason this gave me a feeling of loneliness. Kakashi frowned as he looked at the latest report from the ANBU team investigating the attack on Sakura. What they attacked, no doubt subject to when searching the bodies, the girl's last letter was discovered, which Kakashi did not receive. He was intercepted to find out when, and the main thing is which way the detachment will go in Konoha. The sixth one gloomily put the paper aside. Something had to be done with these actively dissatisfied. And soon. That they might try to hurt Sakura again. And absolutely not fact that in next time he will be on time. The man sighed and looked in window. News about the wedding ceased to be a secret, and now on the girl felt the full weight of the title of Hokage's wife. Where would she either went, her followed with curious glances and whispers in back. And no one speaks. Eyes took a risk. 2 road repairs in nearby buildings have sharply curtailed interest and gossip about student of the 5th. And now to her problems also his enemies were added. Kakashi stood up abruptly, seriously considering the option of Sakura's guard. She will naturally be against it, but ANBU, by at least they can protect in case of an attack. He sighed heavily again, imagining the repairs already in her apartment if the girl discovers guardians. And really will definitely be on. Don't sulk him less than a month. But she will be alive. Ino was cleaning my flower shop when I went there. Hello, Hiro. Yamanaka greeted the guy. Hiro? Surprised he. Well, the girl was slightly embarrassed. You saved me in country of the Highlanders. So you called me to thank you? Understood. What you want in gratitude? Asked slyly Ino, looking around his store and looking for some memento. I in books, interrupted her guy with the most thoughtful look. The rescued girls most often express their gratitude in one way. Sai rubbed his chin and looked at the speechless Kunoichi with an appraising glance. But not I'm sure it will be appropriate. Impudent! Yamanaka exploded, launching into Guy with a rag. How are you dare you offer me something like that? Here she froze moment and flared up more than ever. Or assume that I for something like this not am I coming? What not so? The former ANBU was sincerely amazed, while quite successfully dodging various projectiles. He's still asking. Ino fell into rage is not worse than Sakura, as the only difference is that destroying everything around the collected she doesn't have chakra fists could. All not so. The girl continued to rage, coping perfectly with Pilgrim using improvised means. I not some heroine from our Hokage's favorite books. What books? Interested Sai, almost missing the flying one-head vase. Ta with crashed with a ringing sound, forcing the artist to jump out of Storino. Her eyes sparkling, stood on threshold and slammed the door angrily in front of him, turning the closed sign. I had I mean marriage, he explained in bewilderment to the closed door Sai, V in books. Most often girls marry your saviors. He frowned thoughtfully and decided. We urgently need to find out what Kakashi-sensei is reading. Maybe will these books better describe the motives of the actions of others? Sakura had the day off. The girl admired it a little lazily falling snow, rejoiced at the thin white cover on sidewalks he will, of course, soon disappear anyway. But its touchingly innocent and the sparkling appearance evoked a strange feeling of delight, and she rubbed her palms together resolutely. Today she was going to bring them with Kakashi's apartment decent view. The girl hasn't yet I forgot how after returning from mountainous country, Kakashi sharply besieged the elders, who were too interested in the appearance of an heir Hokage. It is clear that the simple dissatisfaction of the sixth is nothing for the old people it meant, but Kakashi somehow managed to force them not get Sakura. The girls suspected that the old men had repeatedly had similar conversations in his office, but actually, the Hokage's wife once per they are not invited. Sometimes Sakura felt uneasy to myself from thoughts that her sensei really remains all alone and children in unlikely future whether will make money for himself. To her it seemed unfair. Kakashi was a role model, a respected man and one of the strongest shinobi in the world. It seemed he definitely had to connect with someone's life. But Sakura, who lived next to him for so long, she knew perfectly well that the sixth Hokage's constant companions were only thoughts, Jiraiya's books and job. And herself, Sakura. The girl bit her lip, involuntarily blushing from this thought. She suddenly imagined that them with Kakashi turned out great would Ryo family. She was waiting with him by not in the evenings from debt or from boredom and as the closest and loved one, asked about no matter from politeness and curiosity, and to support or advise something. She would even with joyfully gave birth to him. Stop! Sakura shook her head angrily. What the idiotic thoughts! She's going to marry Sasuke. With how long does it take to prove this to yourself? The girl pursed her lips sternly and started cleaning. I put all the things away their places, wiped the dust, washed the floor and changed bed linen. She also finally hung the curtains bedrooms, rearranged the furniture slightly, freeing up more space, and brought fresh flowers. Since have to live in this apartment, then you need to live pleasantly. Kakashi should have appreciated her efforts. Sakura doesn't that I stopped waiting for Sasuke, but after returning from the country of the mountaineers decided to try to trust fate. How's it going? They say? If a person entered your life, then that's how it should be. No is yours will leave, and the one given by fate will remain close forever. Since they are together all the time, then why would not take care of a friend? The kunoichi spent the second half of the day on cooking, constantly checking with recipe. To her I wanted to surprise the sensei, because in recent days she has been truth, and she found out by false means what dishes he liked, and I bought food for them. It got dark outside the window. Before the real night was still far away, but the early winter lights on the streets lit up very early. Sakura was she straightened the tablecloth with a smile, she will come soon with tired Hokage at work. To her it was nice to do all this for him. She inspired the imagined, With what a thank you to Kakashi, she will look at how he will be delighted by this attention as they chat all evening. The main dish was placed in the center of the table. Now all. Sakura took off her apron with satisfaction and pulled it off headscarf and shook her hair. The perfect dinner. Here in room with Packen materialized with a light pop. Looking around, the pug chuckled with the most indifferent expression on muzzle and stared at the girl with an unblinking gaze. Kakashi asked me to tell you not I was waiting for him today, not the 6th, Niken said, very pleased. He going to visit Guy, and this will last for a long time, maybe even until morning. Day after tomorrow. The girl looked around in confusion, slowly boiling inside from not a very fair insult. She put so much effort into it, she was waiting for him so much, and he. So that this guy sensei. Sakura chewed her lips angrily, searching for a suitable curse, and then she sighed and finished, recovered quickly. There are so many delicious things in store for you. Packen looked into main course, lifting the lid with your nose. Since Kakashi didn't, it will be then I allow you to feed me. The kunoichi looked at the dog skeptically for a long time, and then she sighed and waved her hand. Not disappear or good. Snow, like expected to melt, but frost does not pass gathered, forcing people to wrap themselves in warm clothes and with looks sadly at cold sun and piercingly clear skies. In one of back to days like these, Konoha is the most noisy hero of the Shinobi Alliance. He greeted him in a businesslike manner. Fans promised to come to free ramen at Ichiraku and reported on carried out the Hokage mission when he met on street heiress of the Hyuga clan. Hinata! Addressed enthusiastically Naruto girl. I found such a gift for you. You'll rock. The kunoichi blushed embarrassedly, looking away. My heart fluttered, surging tenderness and gratitude. She believed and not believed that the dream begins to come true. How many times while Naruto was on mission, the girl imagined his promised gift. Something beautiful or romantic. Some memorabilia. Uzumaki stuck his hand into your backpack elbow, dug there for a long time and finally fished it out light, something whitish, long, pimply and slightly curved with a pile of stunted leaves below. He drawled, found by a silent Hinata. The girl automatically accepted the gift. And the unknown seemed to pulsate in his hand, becoming several times more disgusting. Near releasing this miracle from fingers, the kunoichi looked up in shock at Guy. What this? Whispered she, secretly hoping that this joke. Swampy! Naruto proudly put his hands on his hips. Hinata stared at gift with widened eyes. From it makes a cool poultice against wrinkles, freckles, and acne. Eyes. Hinata has become even bigger, and hand with Om trembled slightly. Him and V can be used raw. The son of the 4th chattered enthusiastically. How terribly useful there's this. There's a lot of something there. For teeth and bones. For firmness of limbs, and in general. Naruto! You fool! Hyuga closed her eyes, swinging her arms. Broke with a loud crunch blonde head. Hinata? The guy swayed in surprise, looking at running away girl. Well, what does she need? V not this time liked. Kakashi lingered in residences. There were a lot of visitors, so Sakura was bored at home alone, not waiting for his return to nearest hour. The call came as a pleasant surprise. The girl rushed to open the door and froze on threshold, looking at a beautiful woman with long dark hair and attentive black eyes. Who you? The kunoichi tensed, remembering the attack on the road from countries of Highlanders and on just in case, accumulating chakra in fist. My name is Keiko, the stranger introduced herself. You Sakura, right? She examined the girl with toe-to-toe heads with an appraising glance, and she chuckled offensively. Did you want something? The girl frowned, mechanically retreating slightly behind door. To her, for some reason not at all I liked this woman. I wanted Kakashi. Keiko smiled meaningfully. Why does he to you? Sakura stared even more suspiciously at stranger. Home to her, only close friends could visit sensei. Everyone else preferred to meet with Hokage's residences. Something was wrong so with this Keiko. Well, the woman drawled mockingly, squinting slyly. No, I'll tell you. It's too early for you to know. Yes, what you? The kunoichi exclaimed indignantly, blushing from anger and embarrassment, starting to guess what is it hinted. Is it really Kakashi with her? Are you really his wife? Meanwhile, Keiko grimaced. Poor Kakashi, why is it poor? Not on. Sakura got angry at the joke, feeling terrible turmoil inside. It turns out she's nothing at all new about your sensei. You are nothing as you can do it, girl, the woman sighed, turning around. All I can. The student of the fifth clenched her fists, but here for her on mind came the scene from Jiraiya's books, and she choked on her indignation, blushing uncontrollably. Keiko turned around and laughed offensively at such a reaction. Tell Kakashi that I came in, she waved her hand, let him too, I will look in. Not wait. Put her hands on sides, Sakura. For some reason it seems to me that I'll wait, Keiko grinned impudently, copying her pose. Because he doesn't your coming baby. That's no! Shouted Sakura, driven to the point of mocker with a fist. Keiko dodged, looking at the cracks and surprised the wall where the blow landed. Not bad for a girl, praised she. I just had to get there. I'll get there now, the student of the fifth gloomily promised, rushing into attack. Keiko doesn't had destructive power, but she skillfully did not even allow herself to be touched, which turned into a torn-up staircase and entrance and broken window. Having waited until Sakura, who had missed again, began to turn around for a new blow, Keiko deftly went behind her back, trying to grab throat, but suddenly froze. Near every kunoichi stood an extremely dissatisfied shinobi ANBU mask. You better stop fighting, the one closest to him urgently demanded Keiko. Not I, her, started the woman snorted, slowly retreating, raising her empty hands. Who you are such? Sakura asked sharply, peering into deadpan ninjas. We are ordered to protect you, explained to her second ANBU. Order? The girl began to get excited again, realizing who gave it away. I'm leaving, Keiko purred contentedly, forming a movement seal. To her no one to interfere became. And how long have you been behind? Are you watching me? Sakura already attacked your security. Mrs. Hitaki, one of them tried to justify himself, shinobi. Let's get out of here. The kunoichi flared up, breaking the wall again. ANBU are not began to tempt fate and disappeared, but the girl is not. I flattered myself with the hope that it would be for good. Most likely, the chakra will be suppressed again and will continue to watch, showing off eyes. Sakura growled at impotent rage. Today Kakashi had a very fiery meeting. There was only one plus in this story. Kakashi returned home much earlier than he expected. Having assessed the damage and the scale of future repairs, it resolutely entered your apartment under the rage-filled gaze of green eyes. Whatever strange, and there was no pogrom in the apartment itself. It was, although the sixth fully expected to see complete ruins there, seasoned with fragments of crockery. But in the middle of the living room stood Sakura in angry silence, hands folded on breasts. I just wanted that the attack was repeated, Kakashi began calmly, thinking, and not have to whether now avoid her fists. I can do it myself, take care of yourself. Here or the girl flared up, but the attack not rushed. And I don't nannies needed. Moreover, without my knowledge. As soon as the criminals are caught, they are immediately. I will recall the Hokage promised. If there will only be caught through year? The kunoichi clasped her hands. To me what, now it's impossible to sit in Konoha? Not at all necessarily, the man frowned slightly. You can, no deserves respect and trust? Sakura interrupted him. As if I genin who doesn't maybe for stand up for yourself. You can, but and criminals are not idiots. Kakashi raised his voice slightly. And last time they were quite able to you get close. I can risk you, oh me. His student exclaimed angrily. Are you also worried about your other girls? About Calm? Sixth was surprised, realizing now that the defeat was on the stairs happened for a reason. About Keiko, for example. The girl stamped her foot. Or at you them a lot of? Maybe you and not to Gai-sensei and there were guests, eh? Did you manage to get around everyone? At the first moment the man recoiled in confusion under such pressure, but then in something subtly changed on his face. He suddenly became serious and walked forward slowly, no longer feeling guilty. This is my life, Sakura, Kakashi objected harshly, stepping on girl until she rested her hips on dinner table. Gray eyes sparkled with displeasure. My. And with who am I? I'm spending time, and the main thing is how not you concerns. Concerns? The kunoichi jumped up. I your wife. The room became quiet. Suddenly Kakashi suddenly lowered his palms to the tabletop, forcing the girl to bend over backwards uncomfortably. The touch of someone else's strong body made thoughts confused and beat in fear, don't finding the right way out the current situation, and from the look of his darkened gray eyes, his breathing became ragged and nervous. Wife, then? Quiet, but asked with some special meaning. Sakura swallowed, thinking that her wife just cleans, cooks, and waiting for her husband at home. Now more than ever she felt that she former sensei man, and in the fullest sense of the word. Stubbornness almost made her say offendedly, Here comes wife. But Sakura hurriedly slammed mouth. Was she the one who was looking forward to divorce the most? And most of all stated that marriage they are not real. The gaze of angry gray eyes slowly descended the girl's face, lingering on her trembling lips. Sakura stopped breathing. They were standing too close. And too long. The heart began to beat rapidly, and indignation and dissatisfaction suddenly turned into something else, but not less strong. And so Kakashi pressed himself against the girl a little tighter, reducing the distance between them, and about us she closed her eyes with joy, lifting her chin up to finally feel the desired kiss. Exactly desirable, damn it! But Kakashi suddenly turned away and slammed his hand on table and moved away from Sakura. The girl is perplexed that I looked at him, trying to even out my breathing. I cancel the order to your security, not looking at her, said the sixth. You can no longer worry about Anbu, but be careful. With these words he came out apartments, not about to listen to the former student's answer. Sakura bit her lips so as not to cry. And she doesn't know by for what reason was she so upset, because Kakashi is still her, takes care of him like a foolish child, because it turns out he was in a pretty serious relationship and maybe even now there is. Or because they had such a stupid fight? Shikamaru thought for a long time about Temari's reaction to his symbolic gift. That whether no girl I liked the haste, then whether she thought something was wrong then whether, yes, anything could happen, it's Temari. The brilliant strategist wearily rubbed his temples, realizing that it was impossible to calculate the girl's logic. Even him, and trying to figure out or explain something latter not effective. Firstly, with Temari will simply not answer, and secondly, suddenly the letter will be read by her brothers, but just sit in Konoha and wait for the girl's new visit leaf is even worse. Therefore I had to look for at least some reliable reason for leaving for Hidden Sand. And fortunately Shikamaru soon discovered such a reason. By peace treaty, all villages exchanged experiences on mastery of different elements. From Konoha's other villages came masters of the element of fire, from Suna elements of wind and etc. The most famous wind master from the sand turned out to be Temari. This chance could not be missed. Suddenly it will be possible to move from dead center? To that or Suna is warm even in winter. Kakashi was perplexed. He signed the assignment to his advisor, who suddenly discovered an active desire to serve his village in visiting missions, and let him go Sunwoo with peace, not asking unnecessary questions. The delighted Shikamaru left for that day, thinking about what the eccentric Kunoichi would say. At least an unlike alliance of the sixth Hokage with his former student, about them with Temari no one says anything will. But Shikamaru hoped in vain. His departure to Sunwoo doesn't went unnoticed, and two who met in girlfriend's cafe with we had great pleasure discussing the guy's chances in this trip. Shikamaru will figure it out himself, finally winced Ino, realizing that Sakura had simply successfully changed the topic of conversation, and then stared hungrily at girlfriend. Better tell me what you with Kakashi happened? Nothing. The girl recoiled, before clenching fists in pain. I in your home within the morning, repair work is underway. Yamanaka mockingly shook her head. Confess for what's on hubby angry. What is he? From demanded you? The blushing student of fifth bit her lip, afraid that if she started talking, then will definitely be upset tears. After all, Kakashi not returned home to spend the night. But here to there an unexpected guest approached the table. How or at your cold? Complained she, slightly lowering her warm scarf, who was breathing on street. Temari! She exclaimed in surprise. Ino. What are you doing here? Yes, here, the kunoichi shrugged, negotiated with Hokage about exchange of experience in air techniques. The girl meaningfully patted her palm folded behind shoulders to the fan. Well, Shikamaru just went to Tsunobai this issue. Yamanaka raised her eyebrows in confusion. The sand kunoichi smiled wryly at this news and spread her hands. So he'll talk to Gaara, will be glad to see him. Sakura with Ino looked at each other and chuckled. Sit down for us table, hastily invited the girl Harino. There are very tasty cakes here. Perhaps really I'll sit with you, and that is in the hotel is not I want to, Temari decided, with remembering with slight sadness those several days that I lived in Nara Mansion. The booked room was already sitting at her in livers. She doesn't notice how Ino looked at girlfriend with slight dissatisfaction, and Sakura herself breathed a sigh of relief. But then Temari turned and asked with a mischievous twinkle, I heard that your Hokage's wife suddenly appeared? Us and Kakashi-sensei is just a business agreement, carefully selecting words, answered the tense Sakura, on 1 year. That's all. Glanced sideways at her sand kunoichi. By whom would I need Gaara to agree? Let him go to the country of the rising peaks, Sakura muttered, taking a sip. Tea. Sister Kazakage chuckled knowingly. Us with your lazy strategist almost got married and last once, explained she. What and not got married? Here or got interested Ino. So it's impossible, the girl shrugged. Why? Yamanaka frowned, offended by friend. With any obstacle can be overcome. But not need to, the kunoichi waved her off slight sadness. I think you look great together, sarcastically finished her off Sakura. You give it to me what and do you impose husbands? Temari guessed in shock, looking at girlfriends was stunned with disbelief. My own wishes are not taken into account, will there be? Well, she drawled meaningfully Ino, winking at the guest, but Sakura is here not supported, suddenly wilting and looking away. She perfectly understood the indignation of Gaara's sister. Her the mountaineers don't want either taken into account. What do you want? Sakura suddenly asked, looking seriously at eyes of the messenger of sand. There is another candidate for you role of a guy? Better than our Shikamaru? You're lazy. Temari recoiled, trying to remember to herself though what another flaw of the guy. And nothing is makes it simple so. Yes, and none does, grinned Ino. All and they want something in life, she is on. I also thought for a moment and added, when necessary, Shikamaru always gives his best full program. And you know that too. Hey. Sister Kazakage was already really tense. I walk for another 3 years, I want freedom. I really then think about all sorts of guys, husbands and other troubles. At least that much you in there is stock, Sakura chuckled, thinking that Shikamaru had not yet will soon rock up active action in regarding Temari. That's for sure, sighed Ino, thinking about volume same, but then suddenly asked slyly, you know what Naruto is on gave it to Hinata the other day? On the blonde's face showed a clear desire to share the latest gossip about her former classmates. Yes, right in the middle of the street. The 6th Hokage only finished dealing with the penultimate stack of papers, and the clock was already showing midnight. The remaining mountain of work caused melancholy and desire to run home. But Sakura was at home, and see what she's not there yet. I wanted to. Not so that he's still angry about former student, but not yet knew that she say. I remained silent while indoors, it was even more depressing. Let it cool for now. The man pushed aside the latest reports about completed missions and mentally waved at them with his hand, leaning back on the back of the chair and looking carefully at window. I felt great that they've been watching him for the last 20 minutes. Basically, he was not against such a silent company, but after a quarrel with Sakura decided to deal with this situation that has arisen. Come in, Keiko, called he, lightly tapped his finger table. A beautiful young woman jumped lightly into the room. She threw back her long black hair and smiled. Not even will you say hello? Asked ironically she. Hello, Kakashi shrugged, standing up and walking around your desk. Now they stood opposite each other, looking intently at eyes. You and really married? With Keiko clarified with a sly squint, slowly approaching Frozen Man. Married Sixth answered firmly, in no way reacting to actions of the kunoichi, although at the same time he threw a displeased glance at closed door. Keiko was also on. She looked askance, and her the smile became incredibly insidious. You got married so quickly, commented mockingly. She stood close to the man, almost touching him with her whole body. To her I had to lift my head slightly to continue looking at gray eyes, but there was something so teasing and alluring. Are you really forgot me so quickly? Keiko, me married, Kakashi repeated, with looking at the kunoichi's face with calm interest. Your marriage is fake anyway, waved it off irritably she. By at least from me you this is not, you'll hide it. The man tensed, but not at all surprised. Keiko was in interrogation squad and torture under the direction of Marino Ibiki. She was well versed in people and saw them through. What you want? Asked Six. We had a good time together. The kunoichi smiled dreamily, hinting at a continuation with her whole appearance. The man calmly confirmed, exactly what happened. And now, that means a point has been made between us? As far as I remember it's you put an end to our relationship, because I began to feel remorse for not remaining faithful to her late fiancé, Kakashi reminded harshly. Keiko frowned, her resentment sparkled in his eyes, but the woman restrained herself. That's it, so, nodded humbly she. Your wife seems to mean a lot to you. As you see, Six snapped. Keiko sighed, looking thoughtfully over the hidden by the mask of the Hokage's lips, but not even tried to impose further. Apparently she knew him too well. And anyway, she grinned at last, moving away slightly from men. When you get tired of playing with silly girl, come to me. With these words, the kunoichi jumped into window. Kakashi just shook his head at her. And then turned to doors. It's strange that it doesn't. I had to do some renovations here, Sakura said quietly he. The door opened carefully and a girl came inside with head down. Sorry, I accidentally overheard, muttered she, Novi's strength to lift his look. You know more, are you angry? The Sixth clarified, looking at the pink top of his head. Sakura shook her head. And she actually came to apologize for your flash. Because evenings, all worse than that nights, in the empty lonely apartment was crushed and made me feel guilty. You loved her? The girl asked quietly, not holding back my curiosity. She glanced sideways at window, as if she was afraid to see Keiko again. Love's such a complex feeling, Kakashi said thoughtfully. Sakura already looked at him. And there is so much that goes into it that it can sometimes be confused with some other feeling. The girl blinked in surprise, trying to comprehend what she had heard. Care and respect, the man calmly began to list: fear of losing, desire for happiness, willingness to forgive. Sakura swallowed. It seemed that she was about to understand something very important. Something that will turn her around life upside down. Or vice versa, he will put everything on their places? I only know one thing, continued her former sensei. Love is not lives on distance. Sakura's heart skipped a beat, but Kakashi had a not at all there with Sasuke. And even if I once loved Keiko, then now it's no longer so. Love, it's just a mutual feeling. The girl was silent for several seconds. Yuana, no longer are you angry? She asked with hope. Of course not. With the Hokage shook his head with a smile and patted her gently by hair. Sakura happily stepped forward and hugged his. Kakashi glanced at a stack of sheets awaiting trial on your desk and did kind of like them not noticed. Let's go home, he asked quietly. Sakura. Yes, she responded and smiled brightly. Naruto gnawed the swamp with displeasure while sitting on the head of the first and looking at village to lights. The nights were getting longer and colder, the sun was setting early, and evening came literally after lunch. The guy gloomily snatched a particularly valuable vegetable. On taste it was slightly astringent and pleasantly spicy. Sat down next to me. Sai looked at his friend with a thoughtful look. What? With Naruto asked with his mouth full. Nothing, the artist shrugged, also turning to village. Just what you do has a funny definition in psychology. What? The blonde frowned, quite rightly expecting another trick. Such vegetables have a very specific association, pointed a finger at the former AMBU, with a very specific part of the male body. Here he is frowned thoughtfully, thinking about what is the reason why you can't say this very part out loud. Decent, indecent, but the meaning comes from this is not as changing. Naruto doesn't convey to mouth, squinted at his gaze, turned green and moved away, spitting furiously and starting to guess why did Hinata run away. Good thing it wasn't Sakura, strangled he, trying not to look at chewed and as if would wrinkled. It seems Hinata doesn't, so you understood me. About, drawled thoughtfully sigh, Mion, not a few days ago I understand that Ino. Naruto questioningly turned to him. Thought that I offer her without obligation, with the artist explained with an absolutely impassive face, remembering the content of Jiraiya's masterpieces, which made his friend choke on the remains of the one stuck in throat, especially when he thoughtfully added, probably should have been obligations. Girls, Naruto wheezed strainedly. Yeah, the former ANBU sighed, only about one and think. And after that they call us perverts. Sakura returned home at a brisk pace, raising the collar of her coat, as if hoping to hide there with head. She left her gloves at home and now my fingers were burning and whined from cold, even stuck in pockets, and barely moved, about to fall off immediately arriving home. The kunoichi ground her teeth and pressed her head harder shoulders so that the piercing wind does not frozen just like that or neck. The emergency operation lasted several hours, exhausting the doctors until limit, and I still had to write a report and draw up a list of possible complications so that the next shift is by him ready. Therefore, the girl returned home on a dark night, perhaps even later than her husband, the Hokage. But here is the already familiar entrance and familiar door. The keys slipped out as if they were alive. Wooden fingers and rang on semi. Swearing through her teeth, Sakura picked up the fallen bundle and plugged evil into keyhole. The key resisted with all its might, spreading out lie and not wanting to get into dark hole. When the girl's despair was about to burst into angry tears, the door suddenly swung open by itself. Sakura raised her eyes in surprise and saw on the threshold of Kakashi, dressed only in pants and turtleneck without sleeves, but with mask. Looks like he not yet went to bed. You've frozen! The man exclaimed, dragging the girl into apartment. Hurry up, take off your clothes, I'll bring a blanket and hot tea. Sakura hummed something gratefully, with maximum speed at what the hardened body was capable of, getting rid of outerwear. Kakashi returned with the promised blanket and steaming cup. Wrapping the girl in warm blanket, he almost carried her away the room and put it on table tea. Sakura looked longingly into cup. To her I really wanted to finally warm my fingers, but the burning edges could only harm the one who was numb from cold skin. I let water into bathroom, said Kakashi, and then looked at the girl's careful attempts to hug the cup and frowned. He sighed and sat down next to her bed, stretched out his hands and carefully took Sakura's palms there. The kunoichi tried to protest, but the sixth is strictly on looked at her. Surgeons must protect their fingers, this is someone's life. And the girl remained silent. Kakashi pulled off his mask faces and gently blew warm air on frozen hands. Sakura held her breath excitedly. My heart was beating so fast and loud that it should have been heard even behind outside the room. Finally, the fingers gained sensitivity, spreading like 1,000 needles under the skin. Sakura kept looking at gray eyes, no the power to say or do something. Kakashi sighed heavily and released her hands. The water has probably already filled up, said he, gets up and coming out of rooms. Warmed up Sakura several times over the night, woke up and glanced at cup left by Kakashi her table. And I immediately remembered the pleasant touches of fingers, sincere care and look and warmth, not physical body heat, and something else, why my heart felt light and light. Feelings, with how can love be confused? Or love, with which you confuse other feelings? The girl invariably sighed and closed her eyes. The winter night continued and lasted. Ino never just gave up, had to meet with she still once. The girls walked along quiet narrow streets of Konoha. The early morning gave about no by the dark sky and silence around. Affairs and no one at the hospital cancelled. A walk in cold weather can also be nice sometimes. The cold winter air was refreshing, putting my thoughts in order. How are you doing with husband? And lately you unusually calm. Everything is as usual. Time goes by and for him, and for me, the kunoichi looked tragic. But the pretense was not hidden from former rival and best friend. Ino shook her head mockingly, and shook her finger at her friend. I saw how you hung from him on neck, she said dreamily. I was just glad that everything worked out. Sakura flared up, but Hiro found herself jumping around Saya, almost hugged. It's just him saved me. The girl was indignant. It's called gratitude, Sakura. Well, yes, thanks, she snorted. Girlfriend. Ino suddenly became embarrassed, remembering the guy's recent hints about gratitude. Actually, by gratitude we mean although with respect for this man, got out she. Here I am almost not. I doubt that Kakashi-sensei times I had to save you. And you after all, at least you respect him, right? I don't respect him. Totally agree. This, Sakura bit her lip, understanding where her friend was going. Once per that it goes then, and Naruto came to me many times help, but he so and remained a dunce. Pictures of distant, good times still full of the 7th team. Starting from missions with Zabuza and ending with the war. Her always looked after, even the most dangerous missions. Kakashi tried not to go far from students, because Naruto and Sasuke boys, they can handle it themselves. How many or in total did you do it for her? She's lucky, no only as a kunoichi, but in how an ordinary girl. After all, she got married the one who is on. I put her in first place interests and desires. And he saved her from Sasuke. From his former student and her loved one. Beloved, Sakura? Called out to the distracted girl Ino. About then were you thinking there? The girl shook her head. Yes, admitted, and finally, that somewhere in deep down, at least a little bit, but there is a place for Kakashi-sensei. No, I believe your unapproachable resilience, Sakura, all not. The blonde calmed down. Haruno is here or remembered them timid kiss on wedding, his body seen in soul, the way he warmed her up fingers. The girl blushed noticeably. I also remembered Keiko. And what's her sensei? A man, quite young, quite attractive and enjoying well-deserved attention from women's sides. I thought again, snorted Ino. About that you at least respect Sai too. Sakura was found. Of course I respect you. Which she assured her warmly. Yamanaka. Without his help in the country of the rising peaks, everything could have ended very badly. But my respect is not prevents him from being. The girl fell silent, not quite sure what to call what I managed to blurt out sometimes. Sigh. Yeah. Suddenly pointed accusatorily at her with Haruno's finger. So there is something between you two? Not talk nonsense. Indignant Ino is still blushing as well. Then with I had a hard time finding the words. He's just being nice. Here you see, interrupted her student of the 5th looking smart. He also an already a hero in your eyes. Only then did she realize the meaning of the words spoken. Also a hero? Responded instantly Ino. Sakura sighed resignedly, feeling that the road to it won't be easy at home. December was approaching end, and Sakura thought that this month's trials were over when she saw Street of Konoha, a delegation of gloomy mountaineers. The girl's heart skipped a beat anxiously, because among them was the ruler of the country of the rising peaks himself. Why did Isanadzi himself make such a long journey? The reason must have been very compelling. Sakura dropped everything and rushed to the Hokage residence, breaking into Kakashi's offices a little earlier than the mountaineers. The 6th was gloomy, and he's tense. Nodded to the girl and pointed at her with his eyes. Place that for yourself back. With on the other side of the Hokage, a clearly nervous Shikamaru stood up. Nothing good from these guests are not waited. You deceived us, Izanagi said sternly instead of greeting, and in his faded eyes there was the usual ridicule. Dangerous cold steel. The mountaineers who accompanied the ruler froze like silent statues. His shoulders. Were you deceived? Kakashi raised his eyebrows calmly. Sakura swallowed convulsively and clasped her fingers together trying to stop shaking. Shikamaru frowned in worry. Are they really revealed? Is everything really lost? And what will happen now? War? Or they will demand the Hokage to answer for broken word by your strict rules. Can't be, fake marriage it is a crime, the old man explained separately, and a well-known truth it's a lie. Envy to our country for such a thing is executed on place. Kakashi was silent, carefully studying the ruler of the mountaineers. He not hurried with answer. Sakura stopped breathing from surge of excitement. Her heart started beating at breakneck speed. It's not can or they demand the death of the Hokage. Not they can. Not just Kakashi. Not just he. She doesn't might lose it. Shikamaru clenched his teeth next to him. A drop of sweat rolled down his temple. Your advisor translated to him the look of Izanagi. The last month he announced that he was married to Kazekage's sister. There was a stunned silence in the office. Kakashi with Sakura with long faces staring at the guilty Shadow Master. The one with looked at him most unhappily 6 sighs, and then he lowered his head repentantly, and nothing happened not having said in your justification. Execute his, Izanagi demanded coldly? Or give him away us. Otherwise, the country of rising peaks will go to you by war. And countries that are associated with our oaths of allegiance, too. A tense silence hung in the office. Shikamaru! Sakura whispered with only her lips. She, of course, was happy that Kakashi was no longer dead. Threatens, but now my friend's life hangs on a hair's breadth. I think he was misunderstood. 6 began slowly. No, Izanagi shook his head. He spoke quite specifically. What is Temari from? Suna is his wife. Lol. The Hokage became even more gloomy and glanced again at a completely broken guy. Temari, of course not his wife, Kakashi confirmed, but before the mountaineers had time to rejoice, he finished, they seemed to be engaged. Silence fell in the office again. Now the face is long, Shikamaru. And wedding it's just a matter of time, continued the 6th, not looking at the amazed strategist, who began to get nervous already. Another reason. So Temari is in some sense his wife. Future. The mountaineers looked at each other. Izanagi was silent for a long time, looking at the Hokage's face, but then he nodded modestly. If the wedding takes place in soon, then we will demand execution. In the spring, Kakashi is here or extended the possible period to weddings. In winter we are rarely entered marriages. Fine, the old man pursed his lips. But before early summer he must keep his word. The mountaineers turned around and gone, no very pleased with the negotiations. About the new thought when making such statements in a country of mountaineers obsessed with honesty. Here or attacked Shadow Master Kakashi. How will it all end? No. Guessed it? Ours was Sakura's example not enough for you. Sorry, Shikamaru winced guiltily, not daring to look up. For him, as an advisor to the Hokage, such a failure diplomatic ground was twice as painful as for an ordinary shinobi. He's a good advisor, which almost started a war. Means so, Kakashi decided, sitting down again own place. Why you have a few months of respite, how are you will you seek Temari's consent? Not me concerns, with her you'll talk to your brothers too myself, but so that in the spring you with Kazekage's sisters were married. Shikamaru closed his eyes painfully, and then nodded. Choice he doesn't care anyway was. The cemetery, powdered with a thin layer of snow, greeted visitors with frosty silence. Artists from the NBU stood for some time as an inconspicuous statue, looking at the chain of footprints between the tombstones, and then he resolutely approached visible figure. What are you doing here? Sai asked with interest. Ino is unhappy with looked sideways at him, and then she explained with a sigh. I bring flowers to graves, aren't they? It's clear? Do you know these dead? The former ANB raised his eyebrows, looking around at the orderly rows of unmarked graves. No, the girl quietly shook her head. These are unknown shinobi, they're none visits. I thought this was unfair. Sai stared at her in silent amazement. Perhaps this was that rare case when he lost control of my emotions. This shinobi's name was Shin. He suddenly said he looked at grave in front of you. This was my adopted brother. What? Jumped up Ino, and then I remembered Sakura's story about Saya's past and bit her tongue. I'm so sorry. The pale artist just shrugged. Why not here knocked him out name? The girl asked barely audibly. Because like I was in Corn ANBU, the guy explained dispassionately. A name's just letters. By at least I know that this is his grave. Ino bit her lip and then suddenly she smiled and gently touched the guy's cheek with her fingers, making him flinch and turn around dumbfounded. I like yours name, she said slyly. She is putting a bouquet on Shin's grave. Naruto left for a long time again villages. He was usually accompanied by a crowd, where Hinata stood modestly. The heir of the fourth turned to farewell, flashed a wide smile worse than thick brow and showed the girl his protruding thumb. And next time I will bring you a worthwhile gift, promised he, but Hinata no longer. I was in a hurry to rejoice at this statement. If it is not, there will be some fossilized Tyrannosaurus Rex eggs, she joked forcefully. Are there such things? The guy immediately became interested. The girl waved her hand at him doomedly. Farewell, having lost the last hope for anything worthy of attention. But on at least now Naruto is her notices. How many times will he have to hit him for him to thought of dates? Sakura decided to wipe the dust before Kakashi's return. When it's not was at home, she could freely enter his room. Wiping the photo frames, the girl thoughtfully looked at Naruto's father, little Obito, and smiling Rin. So much has happened. The kunoichi sighed and turned her gaze to your team. Pouting boys and sensei who united them together. How has she not before noticed that he always been there? How many would since she stumbled, he always picked up and helped. And now every day she saw him, the real one, not hidden by a mask. I thought about him constantly, filled him with loneliness. Green eyes moved from their tall figure teachers on funny Uzumaki as well then and on his eternal rival. The girl shuddered. Sasuke. Sakura stared at photo in silent amazement. She doesn't remembered about the Uchiha has been around for almost a month now. Maybe more. Not thought about, not for me waited, no made plans. And it's like a heavy load with shoulders fell off. She couldn't love to be so overwhelming? Or it wasn't after all love? The girl's thoughts were interrupted by the appearance of Kakashi. He nodded wearily her greeting and rubbed his fingers forehead, wrinkling painfully. My head is pounding, he explained on questioning look. No dinner today, I'll just have some tea, I'll have a drink in my room. Looking into the door was not tightly closed, Sakura saw that Kakashi was sitting motionless in chair, and cup with the untouched tea had time to cool down. Apparently not helped. The girl doubted it a little more, but then she sighed and she resolutely walked inside. Kakashi opened his eyes and looked at former student, but drive her away not became. Sakura came up and gently touched the man's temples. He sighed gratefully and threw his head back. The kunoichi moved closer to make it easier to treat the headache. She slowly moved her fingertips over temples of the sixth, occasionally climbing into blonde hair or moving around high forehead of a man. Soon she felt him relaxed. He breathed more evenly, stopped frowning, and from the tension in the expression of the gray eyes disappeared. Sakura swallowed, stopping the treatment, but not removing his hands. Kakashi stared at her, and the girl could have sworn that I understood him without words for that second. It's like they were in tune, one frequency, thought about one. Same. She sighed when she saw in the eyes of a man tenderness and warmth. I so wanted to cuddle up to him, with plunge headlong into these feelings, to finally feel what she wanted, so know it was enough on lonely evenings to feel like a girl, desired and necessary. Love or not love? Almost against his will, his fingers slid down from temples, lift the fabric onto face and pulled off the mask. Kakashi doesn't resisted, he continued to look at the girl in front of him, and there was something in his gaze, giving hope, making you believe. Sakura began to slowly bend over, not realizing what she was about to do. And for what? Kakashi put his hands on her shoulders, as if he wanted to stop, or not wanted. But prevent you from touching your lips could, or not became. Girl, no feeling neither resistance or answer, she pulled away a little. But to her one touch was not enough, and she tried to be persistent. Fingers on shoulders tightened, forcing him to recoil. Gray eyes. Green eyes. Understanding and misunderstanding. Desire and reluctance. Not it is necessary, Sakura, with Kakashi said with heavy regret, lowering his head slightly, otherwise it will hurt both of us later. The girl drooped and turned away. Something snapped inside her. He was right.